Hello, everybody. I'm sorry it's been a month, that I haven't recorded any video, but I'll get right back into it again. It just takes time for me to get information about histories of like towns and cities and across all over the world. And my last video was pretty cool. I know that some people enjoyed it, and I got some good views already from it, and I appreciate it. Well, now I'm thinking about probably just trying something different, and I have talked about it before, and I wanted to try it out. Just bear with me because I don't have like updated stuff to do this. I only have like paper. It's history of West Monroe in paper form, and I don't know how to do it side by side, from camera to the actual internet, reading it or anything like that. So I have it paper and packet form. So I'm gonna just bear with me on the reading because sometimes I do stumble on a few things that like words that it's hard for me to pronounce, so I will try my best at that. Well, that being said, let's just get on with the history of West Monroe in New York, just to be exact and precise, because there's different precise. I never used that word, and I'm all big because I'm using the word, but um, yeah, let's get into it because it's the town of West Monroe, New York. The history of it, and I found this website. Yeah, I found it on Google, but you can find it like in the archives or the CSS, or the Historical Society right in West Monroe. You can look that up too. The historicalsociety.com or historicalsociety.org. One of the two, I can't remember, but there it is. The town of West Monroe. West Monroe is the youngest and the second smallest town in Oswego County. It was formed from Constantia on the 21st of March, 1839, and is the original 12th township of Scriba, Patent. The Pateney, George Scriba, giving it the name of Delft, from a city near Rotterdam in the province of South Holland. It lies on the northern shore of Oneida Lake, a little east of the southern central part of the country, and is bound on the north by Parrish, on the east by Constantia, on the south by the lake, and on the west by Hastings. And these are all in New York places that I'm reading that was formed. So West Monroe was like pretty much is where my family grew up around. They grew up in West Monroe. It's a really, and I mean really small. I would say it's like a conjunction, like not really a village or a town. It's real small, and it's like maybe I can't remember exactly how much or how many people still live there today, but it's a really small area, and it's secluded by woods, so it's real small. Excuse me. It comprises an area of 20,076 acres. The surface is very uneven and is broken into level, rolling, stony, and swampy ground. That's a fact. Because I lived there too for like quite a few years, and I found it to be quite like what it described, like pretty much unlevel. The hills are like um uneven roads, and like the whole entire ground in the land of that West Monroe is like uneven, and it's very swampy, very watery. Like let's say maybe not even a half a mile down the road, you see water, like swamp water or creeks or whatever it is. Much of it is marshy and unfit for cultivation. Along the valleys, the Medina sandstone crops out, while in the north part of the town iron has been discovered. And it is also said that traces of lead and silver were found at an early day. Adjacent to the lake shore, the land is very swampy. The soil is a medium quality of clay and of sandy and gravelly foam, and produces fair crops of grain, hay, and potatoes, but is better adapted to grazing. The whole area was originally covered with a dense growth of heavy timber, which long gave employment to a number of sawmills. Only scattered remnants of these forests now remain, and nearly all the mills have been abandoned. Instead, the land is dotted with comfortable homes and fertile fields, monuments of the labor of the sturdy pioneers whose descendants enjoy the fruits of earlier struggles. The chief industry has changed from lumbering to that of agriculture, with dairying as a leading branch. There are 2 cheese factories and 2 sawmills in operation, the latter being owned by H. A. Smith and M. H. Raymond. The principal streams are Shanty Creek, the south branch of Salmon Creek, and a tributary of Scriba Creek. The territory under consideration was parceled off at an early day in the large tracts and maps and titles have since borne the names of the grantees. These subdivisions and their respective locations are as follows. Deepaw's Tract, in the north part of the town, 1 and the Paster Tract, in the central part just south of the foregoing Lawrence Tract. In the southeast corner of the town, an Indian reservation being taken off in the extreme southeastern corner, and a Graff's Tract in the southwest corner of the town. The first town meeting was held at the house of James D. Spencer on May 7, 1839, at which time the following officers were elected. Russell King was the supervisor, Marcus Patterson, Eliezer Slocum, and Benjamin Spencer, assessors. Horace Spencer, Ezra Hoyt, and George Getman, the commissioners of highways, Edward Dundon, and Abraham Ruskin. Overseers of the poor, George O. Hoyt, Peter Phillips, and Henry Stall. Commissioners of common schools, Lucius Patterson, Benjamin G. Lewis, and Joseph Shaw. Inspectors of common schools, Hiram Fleming, collector, Hiram Fleming, David Beard, Solomon Auer, Abraham Merchant, and Joel Merchant. And the constables, which is also like your law enforcement, pretty much. Well, it is law enforcement. Back then they called it constables. Excuse me. Joel Merchant and Willett Miller, justices of the peace, like your judicial branch, court, and all that. Augustus G. Jewell, and surveyor. There is no record of the election of a town clerk. until 1841, when Samuel Atherton was chosen. So it just gives you the supervisors too. I'll go. The supervisors have been as follows: Russell King from 1839 to 1840, Philip Ray from 1841 to 1842, Marcus Patterson 1843 to 1844, Philip Ray 1845 to 1846, Eleazar Slocum 1847, Philip Rice 1848, Avery Williams 1849, Marcus Patterson 1850 to 51, John F. Slocum 1852 to 1853, Henry J. Jewell 1854, Henry A. Baker 1855 to 1856, John F. Slocum 1857 to 1858, Levi Stout Jr. 1859, John F. Slocum again 1860, James A. Baker 1861, Lucius L. Strickland 1862 to 1863, John F. Slocum 1864 to 1865, Merritt Burgess 1866 to 1867, John F. Slocum 1868 to 1872, John A. Webb 1873 to John F. Slocum 1874, John A. Webb 1875, J. W. Phillips 1876, R. Paul 1883 to 84, E. M. Whiteman 1885 to 1886, W. R. Paul 1887 to 1889, George H. Simmons 1890 and 1891, F. H. Claxton 1892, Solomon Graves 1893, George H. Simmons 1894 to 95. The first settlers in West Monroe were Martin Owens, Abel Ames, Joseph P. Ames, Sylvanus Allen, and Ebenezer Loomis, who came in 1806. So those the early and the first settlers of West Monroe. It's pretty cool. Mr. Owens came from Fabius, which is in Onondaga County, and located on the Julius Beardsley Farm, where he remained until 1847, when he went to Wisconsin and died there. Abel Ames first took up his residence on the farm now owned by John F. Slocum and died in town in 1844, leaving 4 sons, one of whom resides on the homestead. Joseph P. Ames, a brother of Abel, was without a family. Mr. Allen was born in Shelburne, Massachusetts, and settled on the place now occupied by a son of George Campbell. In 1841, he removed to Lysander, Onondaga County. I mean, that's a real hard tongue twister name to pronounce. Every time I'm trying to say Onondaga County is like freaking, it's not even a rhythm of saying it. I just have a hard time saying that, but anyways. But returned to West Monroe in 1854 and died there in 1865. His death being the first in his family, which consisted of his wife and 9 children. His widow died In 1871, Mr. Loomis settled on the farm now occupied by Hiram Ray, whence he moved to Cicero, New York, in 1830 and died there. The first birth in West Monroe was that of Azira Ames. 1808, Deacon Smith came from Massachusetts and settled near the center of town. He engaged in lumbering and erected during that year the first sawmill in West Monroe. In 18, that's weird, it doesn't have another number on it, but it's what you get for printing out on paper. Sometimes it's like messed up and you can't understand what it's trying to say. But 1800, he built the first frame building and opened it as the first tavern in town, keeping it through the War of 1812. At this period, Oneida Lake was noted for its salmon fishing, and a company of fishermen came hither with their nets. In 1810, from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, to engage in the business. Among these were Enoch Nickinson, there you go, and Captain Walker with his 5 sons. The business, however, proved unprofitable, and many of the colony removed from the town. Those who remained turned their attention to agriculture. Another settler of 1810 was Hiram Nickinson, or Hiram, I don't know how you pronounce that, who came from Massachusetts and settled on Lot 75. The War of 1812, followed by the cold season of 1816, had a disheartening effect upon the infant settlement and materially checked its growth. During the period down to 1820, the inhabitants were engaged mainly in lumbering or in cultivating small clearings. Their temporary log cabins were from time to time replaced by frame dwellings, but improvements progressed slowly. The miasma arising from the swamps caused considerable sickness and added to their suffering. Fever and plague were prevalent. But those who had come bravely bore the privations incident to pioneer life. From 1820 to 1830, a large number of arrivals occurred. Prominent among them were Aaron Raymond, Samuel Atherton, Samuel P. Baker, Joseph Stall, John Pierce, John Wilson, Eliezer Slocum, James and Isaac Simmons, Silas and James Pinoir, Amasa Davis, and Roswell Gates, many of whom settled at what is now Union Settlement, where Aaron Raymond built a sawmill in 1821, which was the first mill east of the center of the town. About this time, George Phillips took up his residence on the lake shore, and soon afterward Linus Walker settled on the west half of the same lot. The latter is said to have been subject to attacks of insanity, and during those intervals would perform remarkable feats in skating. On one occasion, in the winter of 1829, when the ice was partially formed and not sufficiently thick to bear a man's weight, much against the entreaties and efforts of his friends, he attempted to skate across Oneida Lake. When last seen alive, he was swiftly gliding past Frenchman's Island. The next June, his body was found on the southern shore of the lake. He left 5 children, of whom 2 sons were accidentally drowned in the same waters. Samuel P. Baker married a daughter of Samuel Atherton. He settled here permanently in 1829 and died in Gloversville, New York. April 21st, 1888, his wife's death occurred in this town in 1882. Their son, Honorable maybe, I don't know, H-O-N dot, or I don't know, William H. Baker is a prominent citizen of Constantia. Two other early settlers, both farmers, were Henry Phillips and John W. Sperry. The former was a native of Schenectady, New York, and the later Bethlehem, Connecticut. Meanwhile, a road had been opened from east to west through the town, and soon afterward other highways were laid out in convenient localities. A rude harbor or landing was constructed on the beach of the lake for the accommodation of lumbermen and others. Between 1830 and 1840, Freeman Burr, Russell King, James D., and Benjamin Spencer, Jerry Cronin, James G. Caldwell, Jerry Letts, C. W. Patat, M. A. Raymond, Louis Rill, George Getman, Abram Buskin, Azor Hoyt, Horace Spencer, George C. Hoyt, Augustus G. Jewell, Joseph Shaw, Peter Phillips, Abraham and Joel Merchant, Lucius and Marcus Patterson, Philip Ray, Henry Stahl, Joel Merchant, Benjamin G. Lewis, Willett Miller, Edward Dundon, and others arrived, making the population in the last named year 1908. During the next decade, down to 1850, lumbering was prosecuted more extensively than before, and several sawmills were erected. Among the settlers of this period were Merritt, Burgess, Warren Burgess, J. E. Phillips, Curtis Harding, Elvin A. Raymond, W. C. Humphrey, and H. A. Smith. During this and the following decade, 1850 to 1860, the town experienced its greatest growth, numbering in the later year more inhabitants than at any other period of its history. Elvin A. Raymond built a grist mill with a single run of stones in 1875 for the purpose of grinding feed, which was the first of the kind in town. Prior to this, grain was ground in mills in neighboring towns. The town of Westmonroe manifested a patriotic spirit throughout the War of the Rebellion and early voted a bounty to each volunteer. 82 of her sons enlisted and served with credit. Of these, Charles C. Matthews, Peter Bowman, Ira B. Bryant, Warren A. Burgess, Henry N. Caldwell, Charles Devendorf, Warren C. Emmons, Adolph J. Fix, George Grayson, James Holmes, Franklin B. Hoyt, and B. N. Watson received merited promotions. In October 1869, the New York, Ontario, and Western Midland Railroad was put in operation through the town with a station at West Monroe. I see, this is different because this history here is more in depth than what I read online before. So what I read online before, it was like shortened to the point where there was not enough history of it to explain how everything was developed, established, and all that stuff. Like, where did the railroads come in? Well, I guess we're gonna read it right now, to find out more, because this I didn't even know about. But I knew about the guy that committed suicide on the lake, overnight on the lake, because I've read that before. But not that his body had been found. I never heard that. And that's just something interesting because, like, my brother helped me out with this research at West Monroe, and he found an extension of this history. And I just found a small part of it. So, I mean, it's interesting. The population of the town at various periods has been as follows. In 1840, there was 908 people, which I think I messed up that because I said 1908, but apparently it was like 908 people population. So 1845, there was 990 people. 1850, there was 1,197 people. In 1855, the population of it was 1,217, which is 1,217. 1860, population of 1,416. 1865, population was 1,278. 1870, population was 1,304. 1875, the population was 1,366. Sorry. 1880, population was 1,314. And in 1890, this is where it gets weird. The population dropped 1,100. The first schoolhouse was a log structure erected in 1810 on the main road about 1 mile of West Monroe, and the first teacher therein was Carolyn Barnes. A school was opened at Union Settlement about 1830, and another at West Monroe near the same time. In 1860, the town had 9 school districts, which were attended by 513 scholars. There are now 8 districts with a school building in each, the whole being taught in 1892 to 1893 by 8 teachers and attended by 227 children. The school buildings and sites are valued at $3,810. Public money received from the state, $962.07. Raised by local tax, $736.26. The districts are locally known as follows. Number 1, West Monroe. Number 2, Mud Settlement. Number 3, Wig Hill. Number 4, Ostroms. Number 5, Toad Harbor. Interesting. Number 6, Union Settlement. Number 7, Nutting. Number 8, Green. Supervisors' statistics of 1894 assessed valuation of real estate 209,810 equalized, personal property 5,550, railroads 4.13 miles, 36,650, town tax 1,084 to 1,000. Oh wait, no, that's in. Whoa, hold on. Sorry. 1,084,000. Yeah, that is. I don't know. This is weird. This is. Yeah, I can't really read these numbers. It's really messing me up. Country tax 1,179.42. Total tax levy $2,703.74. Ratio of tax on 100, 70 cents. The lowest in the county. The town forms one election district and polled 228 votes in November of 1894. West Monroe is a small village on the Constantia and Fulton Road, half a mile north of the station on the Midland Railroad. The first merchant in town was Charles P. Jewell, who opened a store at this point in 1834. His building stood on the west bank of the creek. when it was moved to the site of Cross and Whiteman's block, and finally removed and now forms the rear of E. M. Whitman's dwelling. Among his successors were Henry J. Joel, Ichabod Spencer, Henry and James Baker, Henry E. Miller, J. E. Sperry, W. H. Wright, and James G. Burr, who is still in business. Cross and Whitman succeeded. Mr. Sperry in the spring of 1885 have since carried on a flourishing trade, being the leading tradesman in the place. In 1886, they erected a cheese factory here, which they sold to William Mutter, the present proprietor, in 1889. The first hotel was built and kept by Pliny Draper, who soon sold to James and Horace Spencer, brothers, whom Leisure Slocum succeeded February 12, 1840. Mr. Slocum continued as landlord until his death in December 1st of 1850, since which time, excepting a period of 8 years, his son John F. Slocum was conducted the house. John F. Slocum has served as supervisor of Westmonroe 13 years and is one of the oldest landlords in Oswego County. In 1881, he tore down the old tavern and erected the present fine hotel. A little in the rear of the demolished structure, at one time 2 other hotels, kept by Captain Owens and Captain Allen, were maintained in the village. The present postmaster is J. W. Phillips. Among his predecessors were Edgar M. Whiteman, W. H. Ray, and John F. Slocum. Union Settlement is a hamlet about 4 miles north of Westmonroe. In 1844, a post office was established there with Silas Pinoir as postmaster, who held the position until 1860. When the office was discontinued, a new schoolhouse was erected at that point in 1894. Jerry is a post office situated about 5 miles northwest of Westmonroe. Harvey A. Smith is postmaster and also owns a sawmill there. Churches. The first church in town was built by the Presbyterians at Wig Hill in 1849, largely through the efforts of Reverend W. Leonard, who dedicated the edifice August 22nd, in 1849, and supplied the pulpit for several years. He died in 1886, being at that time the oldest Mason in Oswego County. This church is now connected with that at Constantia. Wow. About 1854, a Baptist church was erected in the village of Westmonroe at a cost of $2,000. A pastor at that time was Elder Hanson. The society finally disbanded, and for many years the edifice has been occupied by the Seventh-day Adventists and others. The property is owned by John F. Slocum. In the fall of 1890, under the pastorate of Reverend C. H. Bassett, a neat frame edifice was built by the Methodists in Westmonroe village at a cost of $2,000. The present pastor is Reverend E. L. Shepherd. Wow, that's crazy. Hold on a sec, guys. I got it. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, whew. A lot of reading too, but it's worth it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I guess this is more in depth of like what I was used to, or what I have read before, and it was like this is more in depth, and this is pretty much what's pretty cool. And speaking of Westmonroe, I told you in the previous like when I started this video. Yeah, I did live there for a few years, about 8.5 to 9 years. My family grew up there, and pretty soon, um, I will be taking a trip down there and exploring these places and putting. Obviously, that's what I like to do. Is I like to explore and paranormal research, and not just the paranormal, but also the history. So when I do go there, I am going to like show you guys what this these two places were. Um, my uncle actually lives down the road from down or up the road, whichever way you want to look at it, from one of these old schoolhouses that have an old cemetery right next to it. And I explored there once at night with my friend, and we actually did a paranormal investigation. We didn't catch any EVPs at the time because I didn't have a recorder, but I did have a camera that only did flash, take pictures. It could take video, but it had no audio to go with it. So it was like a older version of a camera. But I took pictures, and with the flash working, it helped bring up the orbs, and it was pretty cool and real fascinating and stuff. And so there's a lot of history to go with it. And I also seen a shadow creature, not creature, but well, I don't know what it was, but it was like a shadow. I just called it a shadow man because it looked like a man but hunched over, as if like almost if you picture Hunchback of Notre Dame, that Quasimodo, I think his name was, how his back was arched and had a big bump. Well, that's what it looked like, except for this person was skinny but hunched over, wearing a cowboy hat back in the 1800s, and it was running from right to left, right in front of me, and me and my friend were looking up at the window of the old schoolhouse, just seeing if we can see anything. Well, we didn't see nothing in the window, but I seen that shadow man like running from right to left, but stopped right in front. Sean looked at me and just started darting the same way it was going, and it was creepy and crazy, but also cool at the same time. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna be going to Westmonroe um real soon, and I'm gonna be filming again there and show everybody and around that place. And but yeah, well, that concludes this video for now. So hopefully it'll ease you guys' mind and like help pretty much like let you guys know that I'm still into this and still going for it. So, and I know I got to apologize again, but I apologize on my reading because it's not that great. But yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, just subscribe to my video. Subscribe to my channel, because I mean, that's cool that I got like 15 followers, but I need more, man. But yeah, just comment if you want to comment on my video. You don't have to, but just like my video and subscribe to it. And the little bell icon, you can just press it so you can get notified when I post up new videos. So with that, I will talk to you guys later, and I'll see you guys later, and I hope you guys have a good day.